Well, Mr. Navalny's wife, Yulia, has publicly accused Putin of ordering the murder of her late husband and said investigators were holding on to his body in order to cover up a political assassination. Some of his closest allies, who are also being held in prison, are only now learning of the news. One of them is Ilya Yashin, jailed for 8 years for publishing reports about the war crimes in Bucha. In his letter, he said he felt a black emptiness and, of course, I understand my own risks. I am behind bars, he wrote. My life is in Putin's hands and it is in danger. But what of the man whose story we followed so closely on this programme, the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich? This was day 328 of his detention. Today he lost a further appeal, which means he will remain in the notorious Lefortovo prison until at least March 30th. That is a full year without trial. We can go live to Bill Browder, who is the head of the global Magnitsky Justice campaign. The financier used to invest in Russia, but when his lawyer died in prison, he, of course, began his campaign on anti-corruption. Bill, it's always good to have you on the programme. Maybe we could just step back one and just talk very quickly about this Russian pilot who had defected to Ukraine, was taken under an assumed identity to Spain, was hiding out, called his ex-fiancée, asked her to join him, and then is shot dead. The fingerprints that are on that are all too familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to be so creative to guess where that came from. And you should understand that Putin views traitors as the worst kind of people. That's on his hierarchy of hatred. The people who betray him or betray his country are the ones he really likes to go after. And so, for him, it's very important to go after them to send a message to everybody else in the country that if you betray Putin, if you betray the military, then you're going to find yourself shot dead in wherever foreign country you end up residing. And so that's a pretty clear thing. Now, from our perspective in the West, the fact that Putin is sending his hit squads to Spain is a pretty ominous thought. I mean, of course, we've seen this before with Litvinenko and Skripal, but I suspect we're going to see a lot more of this going forward.
In some respects, we're back to the bad old days of the Cold War then, where assassinations are happening on a regular basis.
Well, I don't think that assassinations happened all that regularly during the Cold War. This is a different type of war. This is what I would call a mafia war. This is, Putin is not like Stalin or Hitler. He's like Pablo Escobar with all the powers of a sovereign state. And he's going around doing hits against his business enemies, his political enemies, and anyone who exposes his crimes. And he does it on a regular basis. And it's, I would say it's much worse than the Cold War. The Cold War was predictable. This is not. The Cold War, there were sort of rules. There's no rules here.
Yeah, and no rules in court. Evan denied a trial, denied any bail today at this appeal hearing. Not entirely surprising.
No, of course not. I mean, so, forget about what they say in court, that the courts are not, these are not independent, this is not an independent judiciary. The courts are taking instructions from Putin. There's no reason why Evan Gershkovich should be in jail in the first place. He's not a spy. He didn't do anything wrong. He was clearly and certainly arrested in order to gain leverage as a bargaining chip, as a trading chip, so that the Russians could get somebody they want from the West. He's not there for any criminal activities.
I mean, any stay in Lefortovo prison is not a walk in the park. Let's not downplay that. But you see from these pictures, he looks in better health than Alexei Navalny looked, and there's a reason for that. He is a high-value prisoner. There's been a development since we last spoke about him. Putin has been hinting in this interview with Tucker Carlson that he wants a swap, and the man he wants is the Russian hitman Vadim Krasikov, who killed a former Chechen dissident in Germany. That's not a straightforward swap, though, is it? That is more problematic for the Americans, surely.
Well, first of all, the fact that Krasikov sits in Germany, not in America, means that the Americans have to convince the Germans to do that swap. I think that it's a problematic swap in a lot of different ways. But Putin, interestingly, has been really going on and on about this Krasikov. It's not clear why he loves Krasikov so much, but he really wants him back. Seems to be desperate to have him back, and he's mentioned it on a number of occasions. So that tells you something about the value of Krasikov.
Just one element I want to get your thoughts on. I mean, the most effective riposte to all this kind of behaviour is to, it seems to me, is to redouble our support for Ukraine. There's a big debate now mounting. I think the Estonian Prime Minister talked about it the other day, and that is confiscating the frozen Russian assets here. Around £26 billion in London alone. How united is the international community on that aspect?
Well, this is something that I've been working on for the last 2 years. It seems kind of obvious to me that this $300 billion worth of central bank reserves that belongs to Russia should be transferred to Ukraine. And I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. You have a situation where Putin has caused all this damage. We have custody of his money, and we can grab it, and we should. And when I first started talking about it 2 years ago, people were sort of laughing me out of the room. It was like, it's never been done before. We couldn't do this. How can you even suggest it? But as time has gone on, and as the war has gone on, and as the damage has been increasing in Ukraine, the conversations have become much warmer. And the Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, has been now publicly advocating for this in various international conferences. As you mentioned, the Estonian Prime Minister. There's a piece of legislation going through the U.S. Senate called the Repo Act, which would do this. And in Canada, you've got a piece of legislation which has already been passed called the Frozen Assets Repurposing Act. So this is all starting to come together.
We're up against the break, Bill. I wish we could talk more about it, but thank you for coming on the programme this evening. Always good to get your thoughts.
Thank you.